Hello anglers, this is Juan from Juan More Fish, where it's all about catching one more fish. Today I'm going to tie for you a caddis fly. It's called a really simple caddis, I believe, and I've got my own twist on it, and so I'm going to kind of talk you through it. But it's a really super fast and simple pattern, and it's probably one of my not probably, it is one of my absolute best producers in terms of trout across the board here in Pennsylvania and a lot of other waters beyond that. It's something that I take with me, and it's always in my box, and I find that I fall back on it a lot, and it works in a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different water conditions. So I'm going to go over the materials I'm going to use. I'm going to go over the tools that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to dive into the tying. So I've already got a bead and a hook set up. I'm using a Moonlit hook size 12. Hopefully you can see that in the video someplace. For the thorax, the dubbing for the thorax is going to be squirrel, and it's black. Or I'm sorry, for the collar on the fly. And then the actual, thorax of the fly is going to be awesome possum, and it's a green color. You can see it here. Awesome possum. And then the bead I'm using, you can see here, it's a tungsten bead. I've got a bunch of different colors of tungsten beads. Usually use black most of the time, so it matches the collar of the, kind of where the legs would be on the nymph. But when I'm tying for dirty water conditions, I tie it with this kind of, brightly colored green bead. So the wire I'm going to use for the body is going to be this small wire. It's a ultra wire, small green. It's like a bright green. You can use about anything. You could use black, you could use copper if that's what you have. Anything. I just like the green because it kind of matches the caddisy thing kind of theme. Scissors, obviously I got scissors for cutting my wire. Got scissors for cutting good, materials. I got my whip finisher, and I've got my bobbin with some black Ultra 70 thread. You could use the same color thread that you use the body dubbing with if you want to. And I also wrap some .015 lead-free wire on it, and so I'll be doing that as well. And then obviously I'm going to need some head cement, and so I've got some water-based head cement. So let's go ahead and dive into this. I've already got a hook in the vise, so we should be pretty much ready to go. So the first thing I do is go ahead and lay down some wire, and so I'm going to go ahead and put about 12 wraps of wire on here. I start about where the barb would be. This is a barbless hook, competition hook, and I'm going to get about 10 to 12 turns on there. You can see I use a bobbin for this, which I think works pretty good. So once I get down here, I got to use my fingernail to knock it off. There we go. I'm just going to jam it up in towards the bead. So I'm ready to tie. I'm going to go ahead and lay down some thread now with my Ultra 70. You might heard a little noise there. I think I bumped my mic. I have a boom mic. And I'm going to make this body, I go back to, about where the barb would be, a little bit beyond that if this is a barbed hook. And I'm not really going to go crazy on wrapping this because, it's just enough to keep the lead-free wire in place. Now I'm going to take, since the last thing I'm going to wrap is the wire that'll make the segmentation for the fly, I'm going to go ahead and tie that on first, and I'm going to start on top of the lead-free wire, wrap down. I kind of push this to the front of the fly. You can see there away from me, the wire. So it just kind of keeps it out of the way a little bit. So that's good. I'm going to come up, just make sure that's all secure. I'm going to come back down to the back of my fly, the end of the body. Now we're ready to do the dubbing. One of the things that with the Possom dubbing that I'm going to be using, it's this particular color, if you want to know, is light olive. I get a little bit out at a time, just a little bit. And one of the things I do is I use a sponge with some water on it so that I can make my dubbing noodle a little bit better. And all I do is just kind of put my fingers on it so it stays kind of damp. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out. I get a bunch in my one hand, and then I just pull off some fine, very fine hairs and just kind of work that down. Probably about 4 to 5 inches is needed of a dubbing noodle. Sometimes I'll start and just, I'm going to wet my fingers a little bit. I just dampen my fingers. I don't like soaking, don't make them soaking wet. And then I'm just going to keep working on this back through. I'll probably need to come back and do that again. So I'm going to start down here at the body, at the bottom of the body, tight wraps going up. And the nice thing about putting in that wire is that it's going to create a bit of a taper for me, so I don't have to work super hard to get a taper going. Sometimes it looks a little bumpy in that transition area. I should have probably built up some of the thread there. But again, this is not a super precise fly. It's just an incredible producer for me. I was just out today fishing on Spring Creek in Pennsylvania, and a lot of guys were not doing that well, and I did really well with this fly, this exact fly that I'm tying. That's why I'm tying it now, because I lost a few of them. So it was higher water. It wasn't muddy, but it was definitely, it was even darker than green. You know what I mean? It was beyond that greenish color. And so you can see here, I'm just kind of making sure that I'm building up my taper. Probably need about 2 or 3 inches to finish this off. Gonna wet my fingers a little bit again. That just makes it so much easier to lay down the dubbing. Just dampen on your fingers. I don't, make them sopping wet. I just dampen them. There you can see I'm kind of building that up. I kind of take my time with stuff like this. I am not a super, kind of what you would say, artistic person. I think people with the art flair are probably better at tying flies. So now I've reached the head of the fly right behind the right behind the bead, and I'm giving myself a little bit of room there for the collar. And so now I'm going to take if I can get that piece of dubbing off my finger, I'm going to take the wire and just wrap it the opposite way. I'm kind of counter wrapping it. That's why I started it with the wire on the side of the hook that was opposite of me. And I'm just going to kind of space it out. I don't really have an exact spacing that I go for. I just kind of go by the look of it when I'm tying it and how I feel. And so I got some segmentation, so that's good. And I'm going to wrap this a couple times here. I think I bumped my mic again, so you might hear that. You can see I've left myself a little bit of room. Don't panic, because these are my old scissors. I just like to cut the wire really close. And so now I'm going to take the Squirrel Dubbing, and it's black. I love Squirrel Dubbing because it gets super buggy. It really really kind of fuzzes out. It makes these buggy, leggy things coming off of the thorax. And so again, I'm going to go ahead and take my fingers and dampen them. And I just take this patch here. Probably got too much. And when I do this, the Spikey Squirrel Dubbing, I don't try to make a super tight noodle. I'm just kind of getting it on there, and I probably put too much because my noodle's starting to get some little dog legs in it, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and slap it on there. I like this collar to be pretty liberal. You can see there, it's kind of pretty big. And so I've got that pretty much finished up. So the fly is almost done. And you can see, even with me talking and kind of messing around, how quickly that went. One of the things that I like to do with my flies is I take the head cement and I use a toothpick And instead of like dabbing it onto my dubbing where it's gonna like, get the glue is gonna get in my dubbing and make it not as buggy and as fuzzy, I put it on my thread, and then I do my 5 or 6 turns for a whip finisher. Might do one there, and I can feel that glue setting up already, which is cool. I'm just bringing it in behind that bead there, and boom, there you go. Now I'm going to take my good scissors and cut. So I don't have to put glue then in behind there and like run the risk of flattening out my dubbing or gluing up my dubbing to where it's not going to frizz out. I have a brush that I use, and I can brush this up to get it more buggy and more stuff coming off of it, but catch a couple fish on it, and that'll do it for you. So this is it. It's pretty thin, low profile. This is, again, size 12 hook, competition hook, and I usually use a black bead, so all that kind of goes together. This is a great, simple caddis imitation, and it is definitely one of my best producers. I've used it from Pennsylvania to California to catch trout, brook trout, rainbow trout, brown trout. Today I just caught some nice brown trout on it, and it's a great fly. So I highly recommend it. I've tested it for, I've been using it for 2 years now, and it's worked in all kinds of conditions. It's a good heavy fly for a point fly if you're Euro nymphing. Love the fly. So anyway, anglers, just one more pattern to help you catch one more fish.